I'm currently unemployed and watched every movie released by Studio Madhouse with my newfound free time. Established in 1972, Studio Madhouse is an anime studio mostly known for shows like Death Note, Hunter x Hunter, and One Punch Man, some of the most popular modern anime. But I'm only interested in the movies, so no OVAs, and the rankings will be completely subjective and based on my enjoyment. Disclaimer, I will be spoiling mostly all these movies, so here's your warning. The first movie is The Fantastic Adventures of Unico was released on March 14th, 1981. The movie is, for the most part, a lighthearted adventure about a magical unicorn named Unico, who has the ability to make everyone around him happy and carefree. The gods of Unico's world are jealous that he has this ability and orders him to be killed, but they switch up and exile him instead, so they don't look bad. Unico gets taken away by the West Wind, a spirit who is ordered by the gods to take Unico to the Island of Oblivion, where he will spend an eternity. But she chooses to drop Unico off on a remote island where hopefully the gods won't find him. On this island, Unico meets a devil named Beezle, who is lonely, so Unico wants to be his friend. Beezle says the only way for him to be happy is if he takes Unico's horn from him. Unico gives it to him, and they start to play. And by play, Beezle starts being an ass and chasing Unico around the island until he forces him off a cliff into the ocean. The Blue Devil leaves Unico to drown and walks away. But after feeling guilty, he jumps in to save him. Now with both of them going to drown, Unico gets his horn back and transforms into a big unicorn to save them both. By seeing Beezle come back to rescue him, Unico grants him his wish and gives him a horn, and Blue Guy drops the best line in the movie. The gods see the magic coming from Unico's secret island and learn that the West Wind had betrayed them, so they send another spirit, Night Wind, to take care of them both. The West Wind comes back to take Unico somewhere safer and leaves Beezle behind. Upon my initial watch of this movie, I thought it would be another hour of Unico landing somewhere, trying to befriend someone new, and this new friend learns a lesson. And that does happen in the next part. Unico lands in a forest and meets a cat who wants to become a human. They meet an old lady in the forest, and the cat named Katie wants to help her because she thinks the old lady is a witch and will make her human. Unico feels bad and makes Katie a human girl anyway, and she learns a lesson by not being selfish or whatever. Everything's going good until this guy shows up. He meets Katie by the river and says to himself, "Yo, this chick is either stupid or a child." He proceeds to make the moves on her by telling her he is the Lord of the Forest and invites her to his mansion for a special party tonight. Katie thought the Lord of the Forest was tall and mysterious and definitely not weird or creepy, and decides to sneak off to the Diddy party. Upon arriving at the castle, she is taken to dinner and is served wine. Not just any wine. He roofied the wine and took her to his bed for illegal activities. Unico realizes Katie is missing and goes into the forest to try and find her. He comes across the castle and breaks her out and fights the demon pedo guy, but he transforms into big demon pedo monster guy, and Unico fights him and wins the day. The West Wind then takes Unico away again to hide from the gods, and the movie ends. The Fantastic Adventures of Unico is an interesting movie. As a casual viewer, it has an entertaining ending fight, but the plot really doesn't do much for me. It was just Unico landing in a new location, meeting somebody, fixing their problem, and granting wishes. It's not mind-blowing, but it's still charming. The animation style of the characters were fine, and they looked good enough for the movie, but the way this movie uses color, it's amazing. Specifically at the end of Beezle's Island and the ending fight. The use of color is amazing and really makes the world of the movie feel magical when Unico saves the day and the colors go crazy. Other than color, some standout moments being the ending fight with the demon monster guy and the musical numbers spread throughout. Honestly, the best part of this movie was the music. All the songs in the movie are catchy, cute, and don't overstay their welcome. For the ranking, I would give Unico a C on the tier list for having a plot that doesn't really get me invested, but has flashing colors and has some banger music that kept me entertained. The Door into Summer was released on March 20th, 1981, almost a week after Unico. This movie was co-produced by another popular anime studio, Toei Animation, but I included it because it's still listed as a Madhouse production, so if I'm wrong, blame Wikipedia. The movie is about a French schoolboy named Marion, at a French academy with his friends Jacques, Lind, and Claude. With all the French people around, you already know there's gonna be some good drama. The movie opens with a duel between two of Marion's friends. Why are they dueling to the death? What caused them to go this far? Let's jump back to the beginning of the summer and find out. It all started when one day, Marion and his friends were out on the academy grounds and heard a fight was happening between two of their seniors. The fight broke out because both seniors were in love with the governor's daughter, Ladania, and one of them, Armand, proposed. Marion jumped in to stop the fight before it got out of hand and gets punched in the face, and has the most dramatic fall I have ever seen. Marion decides to challenge Armand to a duel to see who has the most guts. To prove their manliness, they both stand in front of a moving train, and Marion wins the duel, showing he's the biggest French giga-chad around. The train Marion was standing in front of stops, and off comes this beautiful older woman. She thanks Marion for stopping the train and kisses him, then tells him to come over to her house later. Marion freaks out, and the older woman, Sarah, insists this young boy comes to her house. Marion, being confused by women showing interest in him, hides in his room. But the plot thickens. Ladania, who Jacques and Lind are both in love with, is actually in love with Marion, and has been sending him letters about how she loves him. Marion goes to confess Ladania about the letters in the rain. Marion says that men and women being together is filthy and runs off. Disgusted that a girl showed interest in him, collapses in the rain like the little dramatic Frenchman that he is. He awakens in a bed, stripped naked, with a shadow watching over him. It's the cougar woman Sarah! She brought him to her mansion, and it was taking care of Marion by forcefully washing him, but Marion does not want to be touched by her and runs away from his freak older captor. Sarah asks why Marion is so afraid of women and proceeds to take advantage of him. The movie now cuts to a montage of a 15-year-old Marion and the much older Sarah getting freaky for about a week of time, which is crazy. We cut back to Marion's friends at the dorm, who are wondering where he has been all this time, with Claude being the most upset Marion has been missing. Jacques and Lind both decide to go look for Marion and head over to Sarah's estate to get their boy back from the clutches of the cougar monster. Upon arriving, they get welcomed in by Sarah and see Marion is as happy as can be and confesses to his friends that he is in love with Sarah. The boys realize that Marion is a lost cause and they can both go after Ladania without him interfering. The movie then jumps to Marion returning to his dorm after staying with Sarah. So at this point, we have Marion in love with Sarah, Ladania in love with Marion, Jacques and Lind fighting over Ladania, and Claude, who has been chilling this whole time. What could possibly go wrong? Marion continues to meet with Sarah in secret until one day he decides to impress her by riding a horse. When he reaches the stables, he finds Claude laying on the ground, drugged out of his mind. Marion tries to confront him, but Claude jumps up and kisses Marion and tells him that the entire time he loved him. He says he can't control himself anymore and pushes Marion to the ground, starts to rip off his clothes. Marion tells him to stop, and when he doesn't, hits Claude in the face, making him run off. Sadly, the next scene we see is Claude face down in the river, dead from suicide. Marion, devastated, regrets pushing Claude away when he was at his most vulnerable instead of embracing him and talking it out, so he runs off to be comforted by Sarah. Upon Marion leaving, Ladania calls out to him, but gets no response. Jacques and Lind take this opportunity to tell Ladania that they should forget about Marion, and the two boys start to fight over who will marry her. To end it once and for all, they decide on a duel to the death for Ladania's love. Marion finally arrives at Sarah's mansion, only to find that her husband, that has been on business, has finally returned. Marion now knows that his love with Sarah is over, but Ladania appears and tells Marion he needs to stop the duel between his two friends. I love The Door into Summer. The story is a sad and wild ride of lonely tutor housewives, unrequited love, and completely ridiculous outcomes that only a bunch of dramatic French people could do. The music is also fantastic, with the main song being a standout. Just like with Unico, colors in this movie were beautiful in every scene and will be a reoccurring theme in the following movies. One thing that I don't really like about the animation style is that all the characters have this super lanky look to them, and I don't really like that, but that's my own personal gripe. So for my ranking, I would put Door into Summer in B tier. Wandering Clouds was released on April 24th, 1982, and was once again co-produced by Toei Animation. Honestly, this movie isn't very good. It opens with a cool scene of some samurai chasing after a man and killing him in the middle of the woods, but there was a witness to the murder and is our main character, Kumo. He easily defends himself and stops the samurai in their tracks. Who is this man, and why is he so skilled? I don't know, and neither does the movie. The movie follows Kumo and his family on their so-called adventures, and by adventures I mean Kumo actively cheats on his wife and bullies his son. His wife's whole goal throughout the entire movie is to get some action from Kumo. His son is the only one that actually does anything, and it's just that he wants to be viewed as a man, so he runs off and has to be saved by his father anyway. The movie is a comedy and it does have some funny moments, but I think this movie could have been trimmed down to make it shorter, because about 20 minutes in, I started looking at how much is left and it just did not hold my interest. I will say there are some parts that did get a chuckle out of me, like Kumo chasing after his son. The one thing that's holding this movie up for me is that most of the backgrounds are beautifully drawn, and I like this little jumping walk thing he does. I don't really have anything else to say about this one, so I'm just gonna rank it a D. Harmageddon, or Genma Wars, was released on March 12th, 1983, and was the highest grossing anime movie in Japan that year, with it making over 1.8 billion yen at the box office. That means this movie must be amazing, right? Right? The movie opens with a huge, strange-looking asteroid from space heading right toward Earth, and some creepy old lady walking around Tokyo, tweeting about how Earth is going to be swallowed by darkness, and something evil from space is going to destroy everything. We cut to one of the main characters, Princess Luna of Transylvania, on an airplane to the US and looking at her green orb. She has a premonition that the plane will crash, and wouldn't you know, the asteroid from earlier came down, doming the plane and sending Princess Luna falling to her death. Before she dies, Luna is contacted by a mysterious entity named Floy, who informs her that a universe-destroying being called Genma is heading toward her galaxy. Other planets have been at war and destroyed by Genma for over 2,000 years, but a cyborg from one of the destroyed planets named Vega has landed on Earth to help. Luna now must become a psychic warrior, and with the help of Vega, must stop Genma and save the world. We now cut to a boy named Joe, who is your average high schooler living in Japan with his older sister. After school, he goes out to meet his girlfriend, but gets dumped, so he starts wandering the back alleys of his city on his way home. He is then confronted by a strange cyborg, who shoots him with a laser that makes the world stand still around him. Not knowing what's going on, and with a scary cyborg chasing him, Joe makes a break for a construction site to try and lose his pursuer, only to get cornered at the end of a high floor. Instead of running, Joe stands his ground and awakens his psychic powers to fight the robot. Princess Luna runs out to stop him, but it is too late. Joe attacks and escapes with his newfound power. Joe begins to test his abilities and starts to become a little power crazy in this amazing animated scene to some classical music. Joe, still not fully in control of his powers, gets a telepathic message from Luna, giving him a lore dump of Genma coming into town and how he's going to destroy Earth. Vega tells him that when he has full control of his powers, he'll become a psychic warrior and join forces with them. Joe then spends some time using his powers and gets attacked by some of Genma's minions, but gets to talk from his sister about how he has amazing powers and he must use them for good. Now we jump to America, where New York has been attacked by Genma. The city is in ruins, but this is where we meet our next character, Sony, who is a rollerblading psychic, I guess. But he and his gang are looting some stores with all the confusion when out of nowhere, seemingly for no reason, the cops show up and start opening fire on them. So let me get this straight. When all of New York has been hit by disasters and people are probably buried under the rubble and need saving, the cops still show up and shoot the black guys. That's crazy. All of Sony's guys get shot, but he escapes, but is eventually cornered and locked up by one of Genma's minions. We then cut to Vega and Luna, and Vega asks Luna why she didn't step in to help Sony, or like send him a telepathic message. Vega then accuses Luna of being a racist, and she doesn't even deny it. While the two argue about race or whatever, Sony is being tortured by one of Genma's minions, and turns Sony into a great big ball of fire that will destroy New York even more. With no other choice, Luna contacts all the other psychic warriors who awaken with powers and call them to fight the fireball. While they wait for the others to arrive, Vega tries to buy some time. He tells Luna to stop being a racist and talk to Sony inside the ball to see if he can stop it. Joe arrives first to help, then the other psychics show up, and we got Native American guy, Saudi Arabia guy from India, and Yun Chun-Li from Fortnite. They defeat the fireball and rescue Sony. Now the group of psychics are all together at last. They discover that Japan is now under attack, so Joe flies back to save his sister, but when he gets there he's too late because some of Genma's goons already attacked his house and killed his sister. Devastated, Joe runs off into the storm and collapses and is later rescued by some random doctor guy. Joe wakes up from his coma to find that Japan has been completely destroyed, so he sets off with the girl from Fortnite to go face Genma with the other psychic warriors. Joe is stupid and impatient and flies into the volcano Genma is hiding in, but it's launched out and it's sent into the nearby woods. Joe runs into some forest animals caught in the fire and decides to save a deer from dying. Then, I kid you not, Joe leads the animals out of the forest like Noah from the Bible. Okay, at this point I'm getting really impatient with the movie because it's taking forever, so I'm gonna speedrun it. Joe meets up with the other psychics, then they have an ending fight that's pretty cool and really well animated with some cool dragons and color and cool effects. But then Vega sacrifices himself and they defeat Genma, and then the movie's over. Armageddon commits the worst sin a movie can, being boring. I pretty quickly sped through the movie and jumped over a lot of details, but the pacing of this movie is very, very slow. And I found myself zoning out all the time, and all the characters are really bland. See, the only two characters I remember from the movie was Luna, because she was a racist, and Joe, because he was in love with his sister. Oh yeah, I skipped over that part, but there's a moment in the movie where Joe is in a dream, he has mommy issues with his sister, and it's just, what's going on? Like, what's going on here? If your only two interesting characters are a sister lover and a racist, we have a problem. I will give the movie some credit. There are some really good action and detailed scenes, like at the construction site when Joe awakens his powers, and also in his room. I also think the use of classical music was awesome, but nothing really held my attention other than that. I don't really have anything else to say, so I'm just gonna rate it a D. Unico and the Island of Magic was released on July 16th, 1983, and Unico's back, baby! The movie picks up right where we left him. Unico is being dropped off in a strange new location and continues to hide from the gods. This time, the west wind drops him off in a quiet little fishing village and erases his memory. So Unico runs off looking for other people. Unico comes across a group of cats who continue the trend of Unico being bullied for literally no reason. But he escapes and spends the night alone in the woods. Aw, poor baby. He wakes up and hears a flute in the distance, so he goes to investigate and comes across a blue man in a tree playing a concert for the animals of the forest. Unico listens, but the bully cats from before are also there, and one of them has their balls out. The cats interrupt the concert, and the blue guy turns one of them into stone. He zaps the other cat, but the leader cat with the headphones escapes, so he chases after him. Cornering the cat, the blue guy strikes a deal with him to become his henchman and help him turn all the forest animals into living puppets. They fly around zapping animals until they see Unico and try turning him into a living puppet as well. But the blue man and the headphone cat start arguing and crash his wooden flying bike thing into a tree. Unico escapes down the river, and we learn that Toby, the blue man, has been tasked by a Lord Karuku to collect living puppets for him. Toby has been having trouble catching animals, so Karuku instructs him to start casting the spell on humans instead. We cut to Unico, who is fished out of the river by a young girl, Sherry, who feeds him and took him in for the night, and they become quick friends. A storm rolls in, so Sherry and Unico go home to her mom and dad to hide from the scary lightning. But out of nowhere, Toby, Sherry's missing brother, comes home after 3 years away to hide from his master Karuku. He is found out, and Toby and Sherry's parents are turned into living puppets, and Toby is once again ordered to turn the village into puppets. Toby spares his sister, but decides to do as he is ordered because he has no other options. The living puppets are loaded up and taken to Karuku's island, but not before Yuniko and Sherry sneak on board to follow Toby and try and stop him. We arrive on Lord Karuku's island, and we learn the reason he wants to make humans and animals into living puppets, so he can build a fortress out of them. So let me get this straight. Toby's whole goal is to construct his boss a castle, but instead of using the living puppets to get the materials for him, he just builds it out of people. Sure. Yuniko and Sherry start to look for Toby when they get spotted by the dragon that guards the castle. This dude. And they start to run away, but get caught. Lord Karuku learns of their presence on the island and orders Toby to do his job right this time and turn them into puppets. Toby disobeys and turns Yuniko and Sherry into toys instead and hides them from his master and goes off to build the castle. Once the coast is clear, Toby takes Sherry and Yuniko and drops them off outside their village. Then Toby leaves to go to the Valley of the Demons. To try and stop him from turning the demons into puppets, Sherry and Yuniko go after him. Arriving to the valley, Sherry and Yuniko find a bunch of baby demons whose parents were turned into puppets, and they begin to cry, and are very, very annoying. Yuniko cheers them up, and they discover the location of a Sphinx, who may know the way to defeat Lord Karuku, and upon arriving at the Sphinx, they meet Mars, the child of the Sphinx, who directs them to the Trojan horse, who may know how to defeat Karuku. So Yuniko and Sherry head out to find the Trojan horse, and Mars tags along. After a long journey, Yuniko and Sherry and Mars arrive at the place called the Ends of the Earth, where the Trojan horse resides. They learn Karuku's origins, that he is just a puppet who was long forgotten by his owners. He was awakened after 200 years and decided to get revenge on humans by turning them into puppets and building his Minecraft castle with their bodies. So basically, all they need to defeat him is the power of love and friendship. I kid you not. After learning Karuku's weakness, all three of them fly back to his castle to finally confront him, and they have a kind of final battle, which is them just running away from a funny dragon guy. Toby steps in to try and stop his master, but him, Sherry, and everyone else gets turned into puppets. So it's up to Yuniko to stop Karuku. Yuniko, being the cute and nice guy that he is, offers Karuku to be his friend and tells him that he doesn't need to have hatred for humans anymore. And it works. Karuku loses his power and all the humans and creatures return to their original form. Yuniko saves the day once again, but the West Wind comes by and needs to take him away before the gods catch up to him. Yuniko 2 fixes my biggest problem with the original by not having two parts but one complete story. But the plot of this movie is just okay, and nothing really that special. It was nice to see Yuniko on another adventure, but I think the original had a more interesting villain in the freaky vampire guy and a better ending fight. This one was just Yuniko running away and talking with him, which is kinda lame in my opinion. One thing this movie kept from the original was the beautiful backgrounds. The color and the music were also fantastic. I would say that Yuniko 2 is just a little bit under the original, so I would still give it a C on the ranking. Barefoot Gen was released on July 21st, 1983. Barefoot Gen is a movie about a horrible tragedy that should be covered in a serious way. Barefoot Gen is like half serious, with some extremely disturbing and emotional moments that stick with you, and the other half annoying with no reason to be in the movie. We open with our main character, Gen. Him and his family are living in Hiroshima during the final days of World War II. Japan is losing, with the residents having to be in a constant fear of bombing from American airplanes and being in a food and medicine shortage. The first 30 minutes are us watching as Gen's mother, who is far along in her pregnancy, having to deal with the guilt of taking food away from her children so that she can give birth to a healthy baby. One night, after going to an air raid shelter, she falls ill from malnourishment and can't help her husband build shoes to sell. So her daughter steps up and helps her father so they can get food for the mother. We watch a family trying their best in difficult times. But then there's Gen and his brother, who are just straight up annoying. They spend this time fighting over a sweet potato for 2 minutes. Then when their mother needs food, they go and catch a fish, and it's supposed to be like a funny scene, but it just kind of takes you out of the movie.
その日、午前2時45分、マリアナ諸島にあるアメリカのテニアン基地から3機の B-29 が飛び立った。
We see Gen and his family doing their daily chores when another air raid siren goes off, so the whole family rushes to the shelter. But it was only a false alarm, so they go back to their business. Gen now leaves for school, and we catch a glimpse of today's date, August 6th. We know the bomb is supposed to drop, and the movie starts to build tension. We see the people of Hiroshima going about their day, while eerie music plays in the background. On Gen's way to school, he stops to talk to a friend, when they both look up and see a lone plane flying overhead. And there is no siren, no warning.
Altitude 3,600 feet.
Fixed on target. Release bomb.
Roger. Releasing bomb.
Gen, who survived off pure luck, comes out from under the rubble to a complete nightmare, and he needs to find his house and his family. A giant fire engulfs his neighborhood, and he finds his mom trying to free the father, sister, and younger brother from underneath the collapsed house. Unable to set them free, Gen's dad orders him to take his mom somewhere safe and to leave them all behind to die in the fire. As Gen moves to safety, we see nothing but devastation and death for miles. But now we have a new challenge. Gen must help his mother give birth to the child. Gen really steps up here. He goes and gets bedding, water, and a bath, and the baby is born. The movie then goes into the aftermath of the bomb, like the Black Rain, and shows how people begin having problems with radiation. Then, the second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, and the Japanese army finally surrendered on August 9th. After some of the most horrifying and disturbing depictions of how the bomb affected the people of Japan, the movie kind of loses course. They introduce a little boy that tries to steal Gen's food, and the whole joke is that he looks exactly like his younger brother, so they just keep him around. The boys then spend the last 30 minutes trying to get food by doing different jobs, and nothing really happens until the last section of the movie when it gets extremely sad again. So, barefoot Gen. This movie has some of the worst tonal whiplash I have ever felt watching a movie. With all its faults, I would say it's still worth watching if you are interested in the history of World War II and the effect that the bombs had on the Japanese people. If not, then you should just watch the important parts on YouTube and skip the movie. This movie would be so good if the mood didn't go from dire and depressing to annoying, then back to depressing. I will say, the parts with the family and the aftermath of the bomb will most definitely stick with me for a long time. But overall, I will rate it a C. Lensman: The Secret of the Lens was released on July 7th, 1984. Have you heard of Star Wars? We have the opening crawl, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Star Destroyers, and R2-D2. This movie may be a Star Wars ripoff, but still okay. We meet our main character Kim, who is a hotshot space pilot and lives on a farming planet with his father and their droid. He plans on leaving and going to Earth and is hitching a ride with his father's best friend, Buzzkirk. While Kim is checking out the ship he'll be leaving on, an unknown spaceship comes out of nowhere, heading straight for their farm. Kim jumps in his spaceship, boards the damaged cruiser, and lands it on the planet. He helps the injured pilot off the ship, and before he dies, he transfers the strange device to his hand. Kim now gets the lens, and is told to report the information contained in the lens to the Galactic Patrol. His dad and Buzzkirk are shocked that the lens was transferred, but all of a sudden, the planet starts to be crushed by the Boscone Empire's secret weapon, a weapon that can destroy planets. Kim's dad takes the broken down old ship while Kim and Buzzkirk take the dead lensmans, and they try to escape from the Boscone Empire so they can get the information about the weapon to the Galactic Patrol. To let his son escape, Kim's father acts as a decoy, but dies while being chased by the enemy ship. With his father dead and his home planet destroyed, Kim must now step up to wield the power of the lens and save the galaxy. Kim and Buzzkirk have a heartfelt moment about how his dad was actually part of the Galactic Patrol to this sweet 80s rock song in the background. Kim and Buzzkirk get boarded by the exact people they were looking for and meet Princess Leia and Han Solo. I mean Chris and that dude. But they are found by the Boscone, so they go to hyperspace to escape. They land the ship on a planet to do repairs and meet Wurzel, the space-flying dragon guy who's a lensman, and he helps Kim learn the power of the lenses. So he's like Space Dragon Obi-Wan. From this point on, there really isn't anything that moves the plot until the end, but the middle of the movie is just a fun ride. Maybe my brain sees space fantasy and the neurons activate, but watching Kim and Buzzkirk riding a speeder throughout a huge factory planet while being shot at is just fun to watch. Now for the ending. Chris was kidnapped, so Kim must go to the Boscone's leader's main base to save her. There is some 80s looking CGI that reminds me of the original Tron, but Kim, of course, saves the day and gets the girl. So Lensman. It's an hour and 48-minute fun ride that is filled with Star Wars references the entire time, but I probably won't watch it again. But I enjoyed the time I spent with it. I would rate it in C tier. The Dagger of Kamui was released on March 9th, 1985. And follows a boy named Jiro, who comes home to find his adoptive mother and sister dead and his dagger laying next to their bodies. The town quickly blames Jiro for the killings and chases after him. Jiro escapes and runs away while being watched by a mysterious man. After running for some time, Jiro stops to take a break, and here he is confronted by the mysterious man, Tenkai, who tells him that he knows who killed his family and that the murderer is close by. We cut to a one-armed man who is being chased by a group of ninja until they corner him on a cliffside. One of the ninja tell him that his son, Jiro, has survived all these years and has been living in the nearby village. Jiro arrives at the cliff with Tenkai, who tells him that the one-armed man was the one who assassinated his family. Jiro goes to strike the finishing blow to the man who supposedly killed his family, and with a stab to the chest, he tries to say Jiro's name, but he is killed by the shinobi leader. After the battle, Tenkai tells Jiro that his father could be a shinobi and offers him the chance to learn the mystery of his father. Jiro accepts and goes to Tenkai, not knowing the man he just killed was really his father. Jiro arrives at Tengen Temple to begin his training as a shinobi and starts a sick 80s action montage to become stronger. After training for many years, Tenkai reveals to Jiro that his father was sent on a mission to a sacred mountain and cut all ties with the clan, so Jiro sets out to trace his father's steps. On Jiro's journey to the mountain, he comes across a young boy who leads him to the village where his father lost contact. Upon arriving at the village, the people there recognize his weapon as the Dagger of Kamui. The dagger was Jiro's father's and was given to him as a gift when he married the village chief's daughter, Jiro's mom, who is still living in the village. Jiro reunites with his biological mother and learns that years ago, Tenkai came looking for his dad and found him in the village, married and with a child. Tenkai put Jiro in a boat and pushed him into the sea and went looking for his father to see if he made any progress on finding this mysterious treasure. Jiro, now realizing he was the one who killed his father and Tenkai had tricked him into doing it, decides to stay with his mother. But Tenkai's men followed him to his parents' village and poisoned the food Jiro and his mother were eating. Now passed out on the floor, in walks Jiro's old master, and Jiro has to watch as he kills his mother in front of him. Waking up after being drugged, Jiro finds himself locked up but breaks free with the help of the young boy. Jiro now goes to a cemetery where his mother buried some keepsakes from his father and dug him up to find a scroll that could help him find this treasure everyone was looking for. Jiro now has a new mission, to find the treasure his father was seeking and get revenge on Tenkai. We now cut to Jiro's old master and a group of Tenkai's men. They are trying to find Jiro because they believe he had gotten something useful in finding the treasure from his mother. Jiro attacks and a chase ensues that leads to him getting injured and having to retreat into the snowy mountains. He awaits again to find that he was rescued and patched up by a young girl and her master who live in a village near the ocean. The old man knows English, so he starts to translate the scroll that Jiro dug up and other papers that were hidden in Jiro's dagger from his dad. They learn they need to go to America to continue the search for this treasure, and he needs a ship to get there. Discovering that Tenkai's groupies followed him to the village, Jiro leaves that night to sneak aboard a ship to America. A fight breaks out on the beach, and the old man dies, and Jiro makes his escape to where the boat is anchored, leaving behind the young girl who is confronted by Tenkai, offering her the chance to save her life if she betrays Jiro. But instead, she takes her own life to protect Jiro. We see a group of guys hate criming this poor black man on the beach next to the ship. Jiro saves him, and Sam offers him a ride to America. Boarding the ship, they are attacked by the flower girl, but Sam knocks her out, and Jiro says to just drop her in the ocean. but the captain orders them to take care of her, so Jiro complies. On the voyage, the flower girl wakes up and sees Jiro taking care of her, but she attacks one of the crew and they are kicked off the ship. Turns out, Sam is a slave, so Jiro buys his freedom and the three set off to a port nearby to catch another ship. Jiro, Sam, and Oyuki stumble across a lone wolf on their travels, and they decide to bring it along with them to the next town. Arriving in the town, they see Tenkai has beaten them there. Jiro decides to face Tenkai, tells Sam to leave him behind, and knocks out Oyuki. Oh my god. Oyuki is found by Tenkai and is given one last chance to kill Jiro and take the map from him. Sam decides to not abandon Jiro and goes with him to stand off with Tenkai in the mountains. Oyuki appears and rushes towards Jiro, but betrays the shinobi once again by causing an avalanche and allowing him to escape. Not knowing where Jiro went, Oyuki and Sam stick together and go after him to America. We cut to Nevada, where Jiro now is. How did he get there? Meh. Who knows? He comes across a Native American girl who's about to be assaulted by some freaky-ass cowboys and saves her and collapses. He is taken back to the tribe and upon waking up learns that the law of their people is to give one's life to their savior, I guess? So Jiro now has a Japanese girlfriend and a Native American girlfriend. He leaves the camp with Chico to look for a place called Santa Catalina Island, so they head off to a town that has a bar of the same name to find out more details. They arrive at the bar, and Jiro has an old western standoff with the freaky cowboys from earlier. Then he leaves town, but is stopped by a businessman who overheard them talking about Santa Catalina. Jiro learns that the treasure is worth over $100 million, and it is the long-lost fortune of the legendary pirate Captain Kidd. He learns the location of the island and heads out, leaving behind his new girlfriend for some reason. At the same time, Oyuki and Sam arrive in Los Angeles and run into Tenkai again. Jiro, now on the island, finds an entrance to the cave where Captain Kidd's treasure is. But Tenkai arrives somehow. Where did he learn about this island? Honestly, I don't know. He must have put an air tag on Jiro because how does he know where he is all the time? Anyway, Tenkai is holding Jiro's senpai hostage and gives Oyuki the final chance to show loyalty to him by killing Jiro. It's then revealed, out of literally nowhere, that Jiro's father had another baby mama and Oyuki is his half-sister. Oyuki's wolf attacks Tenkai, allowing her to strike the final blow, but not before her getting stabbed as well. Oyuki dies in Jiro's arms, and they finally find the treasure and put an end to Tenkai, but at what cost? Having buried Oyuki, Chito shows up to tell Jiro she is originally French and was found by the Native Americans at a young age, and that her father was killed by Tenkai in a duel years ago. But the duel was a draw, and both her father and Tenkai died, which means both Tenkais were body doubles and the real one was back in Japan. Jiro now takes his crew and the treasure on a new boat that Sam acquired and sets sail for Japan, where there is a war that is starting or something. I kid you not, the next 10 minutes of the movie is Jiro using Captain Kidd's fortune to finance an army to overthrow the current ruling shogun that Tenkai is supporting. They kind of speed along through the war, but after months of fighting, Jiro finally closes in on the remaining shogun forces and meets the real Tenkai on the battlefield. Tenkai pulls out that warrior dragon drip and fights Jiro to the death. Jiro, finally getting his revenge, walks off into the sunset. Honestly, there was so much I skipped over to not make this video super long, but Dagger of Kumai is another banger in my book. If you really think about the plot and get into the nitty-gritty details, the plot has some holes in it, but who really cares? It's a fun ride to follow Jiro on his journey. The music was fantastic with 80s rock throughout, but most importantly, the music has some of the most beautiful shots I have seen so far. So many nature shots with amazing colors and some great animated fights. The use of the sparkling red for blood is also so good to look at. Even with the 2-hour and 12-minute runtime, it does not feel like a drag whatsoever and is enjoyable throughout. I would rate this movie in A tier. Barefoot Gen 2 was released on June 14, 1986, and is a direct sequel to the original, and is kind of a mixed bag of a movie. One of the first improvements the sequel makes is with our main man Gen, who is way less annoying than he was in the original. We open the movie with Gen having a nightmare that recaps the bomb going off and his family dying in the fire, and when he wakes up, we learn that 3 years have passed. Gen and his fake brother are now living in a house with Gen's mom, and sneak out at night to try and catch birds laying eggs because food is way too expensive for a single household. Gen's mom is suffering from radiation poisoning and has to work long hours in a factory, so the boy's main goal is to try to make money to help her out. We see a world that was destroyed starting to come back to what it originally was. Kids are going back to school, a market has opened in town, and they even have a place to gamble. Gen and his brother meet some orphan kids who are surviving on the streets and join their gang after they save them from being beaten by some police. They bond over their shared experience of surviving the bomb, and Gen and his brother want to help them with their dirt basement shelter that was destroyed in a flood, so they decide to join forces and build a house. The next day, they see an old man who has been sitting in the same place for several days and ask him what he's doing. He revealed that he lost his wife to pica, or radiation poisoning, and has no reason to live anymore, so the kid convinced him to come with them and help them with the house. We cut to a montage of Gen and his friends collecting wood and materials and retrofitting them onto a destroyed house. They finally have a place to call home. The group has several moments that beat them down, like people treating the girl badly because she has burn marks on her face, to one of the kids dying when trying to steal food from a farm. But Gen's mom continues to get worse, and the doctor tells him that there is no hope to save her. The group kept pushing forward and building each other up. After they find a way to finally make money by selling used bullets left over by Americans, Gen returned home to tell his mom the good news, but he found her on the verge of death. He put her on his back and rushed her to the doctor, but it was too late. She died in Gen's arms. This movie has some good and heartbreaking character moments. When Gen offered his mom a piggyback ride earlier in the movie, it revealed that his mom had lost a lot of weight and wasn't doing very well. But instead of asking her, he tries to make her laugh, but he is holding back his tears knowing his mom is suffering. Another one is the old man. After witnessing the kids build their house, he was inspired to start a farm and grow wheat for the kids to eat. This movie is like a great message about continuing to get up after being beaten down again and again and again, with the final scene reinforcing that idea with Gen being sad about his mom dying, but looking to the future and having hope. This movie is not a shocking anti-war movie like the original, but is about pushing forward no matter what, which I loved. But there was nothing that really stuck out to me like the previous movie. The animation, voice acting, and music were all just serviceable, but I wouldn't remember this movie probably after a week. So I would rate it a C, but under the original. Time Stranger was released on December 20th, 1986, and is a movie. Imagine the Magic School Bus, but instead of going back in time to see dinosaurs or whatever, you go back in time to World War II, Operation Meeting House, where over 100,000 people died from American bombing runs. That is this movie. The movie opens with this guy with this really unfortunate haircut escaping the future and going back in time to 80s Japan, and upon arriving in the past, jumps into a bus filled with some high schoolers and a teacher. He plugs his time machine thing into the bus, and with the others on board, he goes back even further in time to escape his pursuers. On the bus, we have the teacher with the unfortunate mustache, Tico, the tall guy who likes Tico, our short king with glasses, and finally our time-traveling escapee, Jiro. The first place they land is Japan in the previously mentioned Operation Meeting House, the single most destructive bombing operation in human history. The group is found by some soldiers and are immediately accused of being spies, so they run to a temple to hide, and Tico meets a cute soldier boy, but she has to leave him behind. Leaving World War II, they start traveling even further back, and Jiro reveals that he came from the future and hates the time period that he's living in, and tried to escape. They continue to jump back through different time periods, and at some point, the teacher gets separated and is picked up by the time-traveling cop who is pursuing Jiro. They jump back even further and they find some samurais battling, but they witness another agent of the Time Patrol killing other time travelers who tried to change the course of history. After the battle, the original agent who took the teacher shows up and tries to convince Jiro to go home, but he refuses, and the group saves the teacher with the help of one of the samurai. They time travel once again, but decide to bring the samurai guy along that helped them for some reason. Why not just leave him in his own time? The device malfunctions and sends them a couple years into the past, to 1582, right before the
Hono-ji
temple incident. TLDR,
Honoji,
temple incident was when Oda,
信長,
who was the most powerful Dohai in Japan at the time, was assassinated by one of his vassals
光秀,
right before he unified Japan. The Dane is in residence of
信長,
and go with him to Kyoto because the van is still destroyed and they have no way to get home. The samurai guy splits off because his home is close by and he wants to go see his parents, but instead goes and kills
光秀,
who is going to do the assassination. When they get to Kyoto, the Dane meets up with another time patrol agent who has a time machine, needs to go back in time to stop the samurai from killing the assassin. It is then revealed that the agent who was chasing after Jiro this whole time was trying to change the history by making sure the assassination never takes place. But when his plan failed, he jumps forward in time to when the assassination is taking place to try and save Nobunaga. The Dane uses the other time machine to go and stop him. The attack on Nobunaga has started, and so the time patrol need to clean things up. Jiro teleports over to the bad agent's ship to fight him, while the other good agent needs to make sure Nobunaga dies and history stays the same. Jiro convinces the bad agent, who is a cyborg, to stop changing history, so they grab the Dane up and take everybody home, and all of time is fixed. Time Stranger is actually pretty good. I know I skipped over a lot of the plot and it was kind of a mess me summarizing it, but literally the plot description is Time Stranger is a story of a bunch of teenagers getting teleported back throughout Japan's history and getting mixed up in samurai shenanigans. With some standout moments being the opening red and black scene, voice acting was good, and with the story, I learned a little bit of history. Even though I skipped over a lot of details, I would still recommend it to someone to watch. I would give Time Stranger a B. Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you for watching my first official YouTube video. I was inspired to do this because of that Ninja Scroll edit I made, because I love other Madhouse movies like Vampire Hunter D and Wicked City. For part 2, I want to talk about the Romanian movies and add some more like behind the scene details like directors and animators. Finally, please let me know if you liked or hated the video, so next time I can improve. Thanks again. Later.